Cambodia not yet in the middle way of transition to accrual basis. But we are delighted to share with you our roadmap and action plan to demonstrate our commitment and direction to be part of the global accounting community. It's not sure. I'm sorry. So as you can see in the slide that Cambodia actually not adapt a Big Bang approach, which is a complete transition from cash basis to the accrual basis. But we adapt a piecemeal approach, which is a multi-step transition, and we divide it into 4 main parts. The first part is cash basis, issue cash. And then we move to the next part, is the modified cash, that we add 2 more functions on the cash basis. Yeah, perfect. So we add 2 more functions on the cash basis. It's non-tax receivable and payable. And then we continue to the modified accrual. We add another 2 functions. It's a financial asset and financial liability. And the rest we will add another one is a non-financial asset. So I'm pleased to share with you about the action plan. Currently, we do action plan for the modified cash. As a Cambodia cash, the eye for the group basis in 2031 is a 12-year time span. It's too long. So we do cash basis and then we plan for the next step. In the action plan, we identify the key player. Number 1 is a standard policy and regulation. So even though we have the international IPSA standard, but we do need to have a national standard. So in Cambodia, it's the role of the accounting and auditing regulator, we call it ACA. We also identify the responsible agent and supporting agent is the General Department of National Treasury. It refers to the public accountant. So we are here is in the planning phase. We share with you also, we want to receive your recommendation or your experience to help us because we are at the early stage to move to the accrual. And I heard the speaker and some representatives say that they take a very long time. There are challenges in the public reform. Yeah, in Cambodia, we are facing the same. We in lack of the human resources. We in lack of the system. But we do have a commitment. We do have a direction to do that. So the job of the regulator is to get approval on the framework or the standard. And then we do have a time frame to do that. In part 1, we also engage with the audit and review to ensure that all the documentation, regulation have a system of check and balance. So we engage with the National Audit Authority, the independent body in the government of Cambodia to oversight all the documents that we are preparing. In part 2, we focus on standard policy and implementation. So the main player that number 1 is the GD&T, public accountant. So after the regulator, they have set up a national standard, and then public accountant had to develop a guideline. Our job is to harmonize the standard with the current practice. And for the lesson we learn, we understand that do a public reform is going to be a tricky and challenges. And you can see that why Cambodia spent so long in cash basis. Technically speaking, cash basis is very simple, least requirement. But we consider the first page, cash basis, is the most important page. So it requires not only a technical but a political decision. And this page also can decide the success or failure of the whole process. It also can decide the speed, whether we can move next slow or fast. So now I focus on the role of the GD&T, that we have to do a guideline, and there are a lot that we need to do a reform. That some standards say is the best practice, but currently the government does not follow that. So we need to do a lot of reform, both in the framework and law, and we have to improve the human resource aspect. And number two, we have to revise our current chart of account. The current chart of account is not up to the standard. So we have to review and do on this job. With the supporting agent is the regulator as well. And we do the framework and implementation with the budget execution. So one of the challenge that we face, that according to the IPSA requirement, we do need to reconciliation between the budget report and the cash report. And normally there are a lot of things that we have to do and reform. In the modified cash, we focus on the account payable as well. As like the other government, they are doing the cash basis. They recognize the income and expense when the cash is paid or received. So we need to do the account receivable and account payable. I'm not going to explain in detail because it's just the action plan. And at the meantime, that even though that we are in the cash basis, but we are not fully compliant. We recognize that we are not fully compliant with the IPSA requirement. So there are some parts that it really tricky and challenge. It takes time to reform, because for the government, the authority is not centered in one places, in several other places. So it takes time to reform. So there are some remaining not comply with our financial report. It's like the outstanding advance at the line ministry will not yet include in our financial statement. So in the implementation, we also recognize the role of audit and review. We engage with a national audit authority and the independent body to check and review on our financial report, to review on our documentation and regulation. And one of the more important key player is ITD. Of course, we agree with the Korean speaker that the only way to gap between the lack of the human resources, we have to improve the financial information system. So in the case of Cambodia, we also recognize about this. So it hard to train the local level of the government to understand about the international standard, about all the function, but we will put all those things in FMIS. So they just follow the instruction in the FMIS. So lastly is about training. After we are preparing the law, we are preparing the action plan, we engage with the key player, and then we should have a training. The training we at the Cambodia, we have the EFI in Economic and Finance Institute, that the training center for the government officer. So we do training to the government officer to ensure that they understand that our direction, they understand that what action we're going to do next. But as I say earlier, that we don't expect that our government, they are at the same level. So at least they understand the basic, and the rest we put in the system. I think it's supposed to be the end of my presentation today. Thank you very much.